Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Peas in a Pod, episode 283.
We made it.
Yes, we did. And that's Nathan right there, by the way. That voice that you hear telling us that he made it. We made it.
We did make it. We did make it.
This is episode 2 of us introducing people.
And Ed's with us for the benefit of those listening. We talked about that last week. If you weren't tuned in last week, we made a point that we never introduce ourselves. So,
but now that we know that 5 to 1 are watching,
that's right. Who cares?
Yeah, you 20%.
Who are just listening. What are you doing with your life?
But they still don't know who we are. You don't put up nameplates for us, do you? No, so they don't. So it's still important to identify
a lot of
who
work
we are.
For
that is a lot
for
lot
this.
Of work.
Ed's the old guy. Nathan's the young guy. I sit in the middle.
Yeah. There you go.
That's it. So Ed's eating Hershey Kisses over here.
No, I just had a Jolly Rancher.
Oh, you got a Jolly Rancher. Ed's into candy today. So if you hear a chewing noise, it's Ed, not me.
That's true.
So today we do not have a formal sent-in question to us. That's true. And so when that happens, oftentimes, I can safely say pretty much every time, Nathan comes up with a very clever topic that's just rolling around in his head that he thinks he can get us to talk about.
That's true.
Which ain't hard.
I was going to say, the bar is very low for what can I get the three of us to talk about. But you are correct.
You should try it sometime. Just to throw
What's
out
the most bizarre thing
lowest
to throw
bar
out?
you can of something we know. We can talk about anything. We don't know anything about stuff.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I know stuff he knows about that I couldn't talk about, like all the movies he sees.
That's
true. I do see a lot of movies.
He's a big time movie guy. So.
I do. That's true.
But I know ball games I watched that he couldn't talk about.
That's right.
We all have a variety of knowledge.
Speaking of sports, I was really angry last night. Do you know why?
No.
So the Baseball Hall of Fame contemporary era
Dale
committee,
Murphy.
And they left Dale Murphy off.
Well, that's
broke my heart.
It's continuing quite a long string.
It is. I'm beginning to lose hope.
Don't lose hope.
It's my childhood hero.
Don't lose hope.
So, all right. So that's what we know. What do you know, Nathan?
What do I know? Well, this is more about finding out what everyone else knows. So I hear a lot these days, and since we have so many viewers out there in the world, they might see it as well. I encounter a lot of people online, and honestly, even within our church, occasionally will bring things to me. And the primary thing that they are wanting to address is things about what we would call in the Christian world spiritual warfare.
Ooh.
Right. So they come and they say things about the powers and principalities of this world that are attacking the body of Christ, or they want to attribute something to the devil or to demonic powers or to some kind of thing.
Never within themselves.
No. Well, sometimes they'll be like, something's attacking me, but you know, what is that? Or spiritual attacks and spiritual oppression. There's all these different kind of things that people get to. And what I'm trying to work people through is the Bible does talk a lot about spiritual warfare. It does talk about that there is a real enemy and uses powers and principalities and all these different things. But when they talk about our job as believers, especially the New Testament language around it, in doing spiritual warfare, battling against powers and principalities, it never sounds the way people approach to me with it. And what I mean is people are often coming to me and want to say, I think this group of people are on the side of the demonic powers.
They got the devil in them.
Yeah, and so I see this a lot in politics. People come and say this side is evil.
They're evil.
Both sides, third, fourth sides that exist out there, people are coming and saying this group, because of their particular stance or the way they do this with this group of people, they're on the side of evil. And that our job as Christians is to do spiritual warfare against this. Or there are people in their life that they look at and they say, this person has this, this evil on them. And, all that different kind of stuff. So I thought it might be good for us to talk about, what does the Bible actually mean? What does it look like for a Christian to engage in spiritual warfare? Because there's one side which is just to say, oh, that ain't none of our business. We can't do nothing about that. But Paul in particular seems to talk a good amount about the powers and principalities and these kind of things. I just think the way that he talks about it, to me, doesn't seem like the way that everyone else talks about it. So when you think about spiritual warfare, what do you think of?
Well, the first thing, you mentioned what Paul said, but I think what Paul's trying to do there is make a very clear distinction between flesh and blood human beings,
right,
and what he calls the powers and principalities. Because he says very clearly, we don't fight against flesh and blood. And I think that's just a poetic way of saying we're not fighting people.
Yeah, we ain't going to war.
We're not going to war against people.
Which that's where I would start when somebody says that group of people are demonic. We already know they're not over on the biblical standard.
Yeah.
There may be demonic forces that are influencing things. That's definitely true.
Yes.
But those people are not demonic. And so I can't start fighting people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. What about when you get to a place where I think this gets, and we've talked about this a little bit, we had an episode on Halloween, but people are like engaging in this thing, watching this movie, listening to this thing, that's you engaging on the wrong side of the spiritual warfare. You're getting involved with the other stuff.
Well, I do think there's, I think, to deny that there's spiritual power at work in the world would be to deny. We just did an episode about belief in the Bible. The Bible certainly talks about there's powers and principalities. We believe that the kingdom of God is right here, available right now in this world, and can't be visibly seen by everyone. It would be unrealistic to also not think that spectrum that we can't see of that there also may exist opposing forces, because the Bible tells us that's true.
Yeah.
So I have to accept that all of that is true, and that if I wanted to open myself up to the opposite side, I could do that.
Yeah.
If I wanted,
if
I could step into the kingdom of God in some way, I can also step into the other side.
Yeah.
So I don't doubt that. Now, whether it's as simple as when I was growing up and playing rock music, people told me rock music did it. I don't know. Sounded to me like a lot of people that were doing, again, when I first became a Christian and I would do backstage stuff for some Christian bands, I know that what they were doing was demonic backstage. I know for sure, not only demonic, but illegal.
Yeah.
and everybody seemed to not notice that.
Yeah.
So I'll just say it's not as simple as people, it's not the Ouija board. It's not the, certain words you say. You can open yourself up to it. I believe that. You can step into it. But just like stepping into the kingdom of God is not a magic thing where you say Jesus' name 8 times.
Yeah.
Because not everybody who says, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven.
That's right.
It can't be that simple on the other side either. And if you don't want to be drugged into that kingdom, I don't believe you can.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff, and I said when we were setting this up off mic, I was saying that I've been reading N.T. Wright, who's a New Testament scholar, and he was talking about particularly a lot of the passages that get brought out in these. One Jason already mentioned of, we don't fight against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities. And then the other one about putting on the armor of God. And I have known many a men's ministry to take the armor of God verses and make it this, we got to go to war. That's what being a man is you're a warrior, and you're a warrior for Jesus. And so now I've not known any of those mean now we got to go kill somebody. But what they do mean is we got to take charge. We got to make sure that the people in our family and the people, we have influence over, that they are doing all the right stuff, because that's what the armor of God, it's about truth, it's, salvation and faith and all the different kinds of things. And what N.T. Wright gets to is he says all of that in Ephesians is set in a larger context of the entire book or letter to the Ephesians, which is really about Paul's main view of what life in the kingdom is, which is that the church becomes a working model of the new creation that Jesus is bringing. That in Jesus' second coming, he's going to bring a full new creation, as we know from the book of Revelation. There's going to be new heavens, new earth, new Jerusalem, all these kind of metaphorical imagery of heaven is going to come to earth.
Yep.
And that the new creation, everything's going to be made new and right and beautiful and all that kind of stuff. And he says the church exists as the people who have already been called out of the old world, the old way things are, into this new creation, so that when people look at us, they go, oh, that's what's coming one day. Mm-hmm. That's what everyone's going to be doing one day. And in particular, in Ephesians, the way that works out, as many of Paul's letters in the New Testament are, is the fact that there's this diverse group of people that are living together, Jew and Gentile, male and female, free and slave. So this is rich, poor, ethnic divisions, gender divisions. Cultural. All of this is getting broken down, and that there's equality among these people. There's this actual, equity and justice and righteousness that kind of exists. And so he sets all that up in the first 3 or 4 chapters of Ephesians. And then when he gets to the spiritual warfare, what he's saying is, so there are times you're going to feel divided, and you got to remember, you're not fighting against the Jews that preach the thing you don't think you like, or the Gentiles who you feel like aren't living up fully to their standard, or the women that you think have too much power, or the men you think are trying to dominate you again, or the poor, all these different things. You're going to want to look at all these things that are causing division and go, they're the problem. If we just got them out of the church, everything we find. He goes, you got to remember, there are spiritual forces that are at work to divide you and keep you from being the working model. And so then he says, so you got to put on the armor of God, which N.T. Wright takes the stuff Paul says to mean it's not about going on the attack. The armor is a defensive strategy. It is about standing firm in the midst of, we're supposed to be united. So I'm just not backing down from you. There are times, yes, this is difficult and this is tough, and we don't fully agree on this, but I'm standing firm because I've got truth on. We're not going to back away from truth. Mm-hmm. Jesus is the truth, so we're going to hold on to this, right? It's the belt of truth or something like that, but that's going to be held me on, the faith, right? It's like,
we're going to pray for you.
All these different things. There's all the different ones of the different parts of the armor of God. And that's the idea. And so the point I want to get to is, this is what it looks like to do battles against the powers and principalities. It's not that I've got to identify who are the evil people and make sure they don't get more influence, and I got to have more influence than them, or they're going to take over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's that I got to stand firm for the sake of unity in the church, for the sake of being centered around Jesus and the truth of Jesus.
And it has to come with a sense of what you're talking about, Nathan, is a sense of, I do that because I have full confidence that the outcome will be just as Jesus promised. And because what I see in that thing you just set up, when a lot of people in our culture that I hear saying, oh, we got to go to war.
Right.
We got to protect. We got to fight. We got to all these things. It comes from a posture of, if we don't, it's all going to crumble.
Yeah, the darkness will win.
Darkness is going to overtake the light, and the church will be defeated, or the cause of Christ will not go forward. And I'm like, which Jesus did y'all decide to follow? Because Jesus said that would not happen.
That's right.
No matter what. And I was saying before we hit record, if you believe that the darkness can win, then you will do pretty much anything, and you will blow past pretty much any standard to make sure that it doesn't.
Which we have plenty of historical evidence where Christians have taken that stand.
And they have, absolutely.
And it has done more to set back the cause of Christ than almost anything. I mean, the Crusades are an example, the Inquisition's an example.
Which is what we see the opposite of in Jesus. When the disciples said, Rome can't win, we've got to overthrow them, we must take up swords and fight. Jesus said, put your sword away, I'm going to the cross.
Right.
Because he knew, he had the confidence that even death could not stop the move of God in this world, and he proved it through the resurrection. And so I think anytime this mentality of spiritual warfare leads us to a posture of fear, there is not a firm foundation. I must fight for it. I am God's only hope to bring victory into this world. You've crossed over to a space where Jesus has not invited you.
Yeah. And I think that idea of ultimately of standing firm becomes the way that we go about it. You know, Martin Luther King Jr., I don't know if it's original to him, but used the language a lot of non-cooperation with injustice or non-cooperation with evil. And he talks about, and it's in this longer part where he talks about which I think we can rightfully call racism evil and a spirit of division and coming at the civil rights workers that are just standing up for their rights. And he goes, we will not fight you. And he says, but we will overcome you. He said, because you have underestimated our ability to suffer in love. You have underestimated, he said, we will overcome you by soul force. We will not take you by military force. He says, we will love you all the while that you hate us. And he goes, but we cannot cooperate anymore with your unjust laws and all these different, that there's this idea of standing firm. And you said how much I love movies. Just yesterday, I was rewatching a movie have both of y'all seen Bridge of Spies? The Spielberg, Tom Hanks movie about Cold War. Yeah. It's a great movie. Really, really good for the current world that we live in. But I was rewatching it, and the big kind of emotional centerpiece of the movie. So the movie is about a real true story of a guy who was I think he's English born, but was a Soviet spy in America in the
Tom Hanks in this movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Tom Hanks is a American citizen who says this guy needs an actual legal defense. You can't just treat him because the whole legal system is basically like, we know he's a spy, let's execute him. And he does all these maneuverings to do it. Now, at some point, this is kind of the big point of the movie is, an American, and this is the argument he makes, is if we execute this guy, someday they're going to have one of our spies. We're going to want to make an exchange. And the whole second half of the movie is about him trying to make this exchange, not for just the one American spy, which is who the Americans want, but there's an American student who got taken by the East German police. And it's him, the whole movie, which is interesting, is him basically debating to get, the Americans only want him to trade for the one guy. The Russians only want to give him the one guy. He's trying to get both guys for the one. He's trying to do a 2-for-1. And the whole thing that they keep coming to is, the guy who's the Soviet spy who becomes his friend says to him, he calls him, "You're the standing man." He said, when the Soviets first came, he said, there was a friend of my dad's who just stood in the corner and never spoke. And he said, and my dad kept saying, pay attention to that man. And he never said anything. He never did anything. But then the day when the secret police came and they beat my father and they beat my mother, they would hit this man. And every time he would just stand back up. And then they'd hit him and get him on the ground and he'd stand back up. And he'd say, then eventually I heard him, and I can't say what it is, whatever it is in Russian. I don't know what the thing is. He goes, but they just, eventually the secret police gave up beating him because they said, he's the standing man. He just, no matter how many times he gets hit, knocked down, he stands back up. And then at the end of the movie, that's the point he says to Tom Hanks, as he goes, you're the standing man. He goes, I'm not fighting against the other people. I won't demonize them, because that's the whole thing is the Americans hate Tom Hanks because he's standing up for the enemy. The Russians don't get why this guy is. And he cares about them all. And he just goes, I'm just going to stand firm. I will not let you move me off of what I know to be true, but I will not fight you. I'm not going to demonize you. And I thought, what a beautiful, Steven Spielberg's not a believer, but I thought, what a beautiful picture of what it really is to be a believer, is to say, the way I do spiritual warfare is I do not cooperate with the powers and principalities of this world, which probably means I've got to get pretty deep in myself. This is why we root sin out of ourselves. It's not just that sin does damage to me and does damage to other people. It further pollutes the powers of this world and gives them more power every time that I allow racism into me. Every time I allow hatred and division into me, every time I allow sexual immorality or greed into my life, it's not just, man, that really is bad for me and I need to fight it. At some point, I have to go, I stand with Jesus, who is gently non-cooperating with evil to the point of his own death.
Exactly.
And I think if we as believers had more of a point of view of going,
well, and the church has always advanced in just that way. When things happen in the world where other people are running away from problems, even if it would be at the cost of their lives, the church moves toward that problem. When the church operates right, it moves in love toward the problem that everybody else runs away from.
yes.
And it doesn't say you've got to confess Jesus or we won't help you. It just helps you.
Yes.
It doesn't mean we get to now be in charge of everything. We just decide to move towards you and help. It is the way of coming underneath the problem, serving the problem, and doing what Jesus did, even if at the cost of giving up. I was, I guess, in this recording this during just as we've started the Advent season, and when I was studying for those messages and thinking about it, and I can't remember which of the two that I wrote, which one this came up to me in. I'm thinking particularly about, why is it that all the people who knew the prophecies missed the Messiah when he shows up? And I think because they had read even the Old Testament prophecies. I think one of the reasons, probably all kinds of reasons, but there is a warrior-like kind of portrait of the Messiah doing battle against evil, and they thought that's what was going to happen. He was going to come and he was going to do that. And when that didn't happen, they go, well, you're not it.
That's right.
And we know for sure he was. And now I hear Christians on this side of the cross who know what Jesus did, who was a real Messiah. And there's a whole group of people we look back at and go, how could they have missed that? And yet I hear people interpret the second coming and the way Christians are supposed to interact now. And we do the same thing. We take these war images, which we are doing war by opposing. We're just not cooperating. And they attach violence to it.
Yeah.
And they thought Jesus was going to come and do violence to the Romans. And, the church did overcome the Empire of Rome. It just took a minute.
Yeah.
It just, and God's okay with that.
That's right.
Because his time isn't like our time.
That's right.
And so I think if we could just get people to get, there's so much going on that you don't know. And you just have to trust that Jesus is right about everything, and he is the model. And to think that he came one way and this way. And I hear people say, well, of course he came once in peace, but did you notice over here he's going to come back in power? Well,
wait a minute.
They also thought he was going to come in power. And maybe you're misreading just as much as they were misreading. He's going to be the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Well, and what becomes clear is when Jesus references, you talk about coming in power, when in his first coming, he did come in power, but he came in the power of the kingdom. And so he says to Pilate at the one part, because I've been prepping for some stuff leading into Easter, and he talks about you're going to, or he says to Caiaphas, I should say, he says, you're going to see the Son of Man coming in power. But he's talking about his death.
Yes,
And he's talking about his resurrection. He's going, the power that you assumed was I'm coming down with angels to destroy all the Gentiles and all the nations and all the unbelieving Jews. Like, I'm going to take all those out. I'm just going to keep the ones that are good. The way you're going to see the Son of Man coming in power is you're going to put me on that cross. And that's when it's going to happen. So to your point, that he did come in power, but the power did not look like our kind of power.
Right. Because the only power we can imagine is the ultimate fear that everyone has, that somebody's going to kill me.
Yep.
And the only way to win anything is to eventually put your enemies to death. And Jesus said, let me just take that off the table. Death ain't that big a deal.
That's right.
I took care of death, and if you trust in me, you can do what I did, and you can willingly give up your life knowing that it will play a part in God's overall scheme, which the apostles proved. They all gave their life, and we now know their names, and we venerate them, but then somehow every generation of Christians has these people we venerate. I don't want to do what they did.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't want to do what they did. I want to do the opposite of what they did. I want to win in a different way. And you fight the battle of God the way that God fights his battles.
Yeah.
And there is more going on than you know. There's always more going on than you know.
And it's interesting to me when we talk about, the New Testament talk around powers and principalities and things like, the works of the flesh. That's another one I hear, all the people talk about. All of those things. What's interesting, when you talk about the work of the Spirit, it always leads to love, or it's centered in love for others. It's centered in unity within, the body of Christ. But then there's also these things that I don't see many people who talk about our biggest thing is we got to go to war against, spiritual warfare. We got to go against people. A lot of times what doesn't get talked about is I've got to lay down divisiveness. And that's how I do it. I got to lay down sexual immorality. I got to lay down greed. I got to lay down these things that often what spiritual warfare is the cost to me. What I want a way that I win power because I'm right about what I believe, but I don't ever have to give up these other things. I can still kind of hold on to it. And I think the way that even we Christianize, the way we talk about sex at times, the way we talk about greed at times, the way we talk about money. We don't talk about greed. The way we talk about, money, we can just think about all the good. If I got more money, all the good I could do with money, it sounds a lot more like Rome and a lot less like Jesus. And that the answer to all of our problems is, somehow money, power, influence, all these different things that you don't hear Jesus talk about, except to warn you about those things.
Yeah, for sure.
And I go, if there is a spiritual influence that is dangerous to the church, it is our lack of willingness to stand firm on the truth of what Jesus has said, not the things that we wish he would have said. And we got to hold on to those things, which does require me, if I'm going to non-cooperate, I got to start taking my sin very seriously and stop worrying about people who don't even believe in Jesus and their sin. I got to get very clear, if I'm ever going to help anyone else, my sin is a problem.
And a big part of my sin, and most of us have this, and we don't even put it in the top of it, is that I notice your sin.
Yeah, the judgment
I
of
am
it.
really, I am really clear on what your problem is.
Yes.
And you need to fix your problem, all you over there. Now, I might have a problem, but you got to fix yours for sure.
Yeah. So I think standing firm is a big deal that we've got to figure out. And hopefully at Community Christian, we're doing better all the time. That's our hope.
Well, we do better together when we hold each other together, because I can get all kinds of odd ideas out of the sin that grows in me, and my brothers and sisters help me correct that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that was a good discussion. Thanks for bringing that to us, Nathan.
I'm always happy.
All right. Maybe we'll have a question next week, or maybe it will be part 2 of Nathan's musings.
Nathan's musings.
What he would like us to talk about.
I bet we're in 2026, the next one.
Think so?
Maybe. I bet we're not filming again in 2025. That's what I
This might be it for our filming in 2025.
We got a lot of stuff going on. We don't just make fine podcasts.
We don't.
Well, we don't know that we make fine podcasts.
I'm gonna say we do. I'm proud of the work we do on this podcast, but we do a lot of other work that is, I'll just say, much more important than just doing a podcast.
I agree with that.
We're happy to do the podcast. We know a lot of people listen to it, and it's a good window.
And we hope it's helping.
We do hope so, but it ain't going to be top of our priority before the year is up.
No.
So,
but you send in a question in the description.
We'll get to it.
And we will get to it. And we will see you whenever we see you. If it's in 2026, have a blessed new year.
And you do.
Yeah.